Welcome in to a mid-season MVC First Pitch brought to you by Rawlings. And our first stop in season is with Bradley Braves and Elvis Dominguez. And Coach, unfortunately, didn't get to exact any revenge on Lindenwood. Weather victorious there. But one thing that weather couldn't take away from me was a victory against the Illinois State Redbirds this past weekend. We'll talk about this upcoming weekend here in a second. But you guys are really offensive the first couple of games of the series. And anytime you can take a series opening weekend, it's got to be satisfying. Talk about it a little bit in general.
Yeah, it's Shane, it's really, we've been a tale of two seasons. Early on, the first 9 or 10 games, offensively, we just couldn't get anything going from top to bottom. And then, the last 10 games or so has been totally opposite. So our kids we always knew they had the potential. It was just a matter of executing. And I tell you what, it was a hard-fought series. Obviously, anytime you can go on the road and take a series, it's very beneficial, especially to start off. And we haven't played a home game yet. So I think this 21, and we'll play another 3 here this weekend. That's 24 before we ever set foot on our field. So it's been taxing at times, but at the same time, I think it's going to definitely help us down the road.
Baseball seems to be a galvanizing sport when you're always on the road. Is that the case with you guys?
Yes, it is what it is. Mother Nature just doesn't allow us to play a home game, and obviously us being natural turf, surface, it kind of lends a little bit different. If we had turf field, and I'm not saying that we probably wouldn't have played early on, but it is what it is, and we just adjust and adapt, and we know what's in front of us.
Offensively, to start with that 9-8 game, I don't know if that's ever ideally how you want to start a series, but you come out on top. And the one thing I noticed you guys did do, you kind of played a tug-of-war game with Illinois State, and your offense never really let up. You had 15 hits. That had to make you feel good.
It did. And like I said, because of what we had encountered the first part, it was always a matter of how we're going to get going. And from top to bottom, we did execute a lot. We had, I think the lead, never lost the lead that game, but, they kept coming back, and we were able to withstand some of their pressure and some of their offensive onslaught there for a second, and then they tied it in the ninth or the eighth, bottom of the eighth, and then we were able to just get a leadoff home run from Travis Lutz in the top of the ninth, and we're able to hold off them in the bottom of the ninth. So that was a hard fought game, but I was really pleased with the way we came out, and we really were resilient.
It's not often that you talk about a starting pitching performance in a game that ends 9-8, but I thought Noah Headers, the way he pitched for you guys, especially putting up a 0 in the 7th, to give you 7 full in the opening game of that series, you never know what that's going to lead to when it comes to your bullpen the next 2 games. So you got to be proud of him for just gutting it out.
Oh, he did. He did a tremendous job for us. And we are really shorthanded on the mound and have been all year with injuries. We're starting, hopefully, to get a couple of those guys back. But at the same time, Shane, that it's one of those things where, because you've been so shorthanded on the first part of the year, sometimes I always worry about, how am I taxing that bullpen? How am I taxing those guys? But if your starters don't go out and give you a quality start, 5, 6, 7 innings, then, it really puts you at a disadvantage. But we were able to, same way with on Saturday with Travis Lutz on the mound. He gave us an opportunity. So it saved somewhat of our bullpen. We only used 2 pitchers on Friday. And so we were a little bit more loaded on the backside when it came to, the weekend, pretty much.
Talk about Bo Durbin and the offensive start that he's off to 342 with the average. He and Cole Lucky have come on to have really good starts to their offensive season.
They have, and both those guys had a rough start to begin with, and here the last, like I said, 10 to 12 games, they sort of picked it up. And we need those guys to be healthy. We need those guys to to be able to contribute for us to get going offensively. And so far, knock on wood, it's been, that we've been able to do that.
You talked about Travis Lutz a little bit ago, and I don't know if this is a dying breed or just I'm getting old, but it seems like two-way players.
Me too.
Yeah, two-way players aren't real prevalent anymore, but you got one. How difficult is it, or how much of a fine line is it to walk to manage his workload as we get into the middle part of the season now?
Well, it is very challenging, but he's a very strong, athletic young man that actually gives us an opportunity to win on Saturdays, and he basically got thrown into the fire there because of injuries. Michael Milot hasn't been with us for the majority of our season, who would have carried that load. Mason Breedenbach is another kid that has been battling some injuries as well. So he, gave an opportunity and gave us a chance and gave us a spark to begin with. And then, he's sort of basically taking that role by himself. But at the same time, I got to worry about the fact that, how is he going to break down as far as the season goes on? So I've been trying to manage it the best way I can. I'm not sure there's a blueprint to actually do that. When you guys had Dryford way back when, it's just a fine line to be able to handle both and to be able to execute on both sides of the baseball. But so far, he's been able to do that.
And sometimes you have to save those guys from themselves. You got to see the big picture.
Correct. And that's something that, like I said, it's trial by error, and we'll try to figure it out. But so far, it's worked out. So
Valpo this weekend, and then hopefully you get back home. But talk about Brian Schmack's bunch, the Beacons, kind of ran into a buzzsaw against SIU opening weekend.
Yeah, and we really haven't bared down on them too much, but I can tell you those guys are always competitive. They're a scrappy bunch from top to bottom in their lineup, and they have some decent arms. So I'm sure every weekend in the Valley is just a cutthroat series. So we're trying to just stay positive and do the best we can, and hopefully we can come out on top this weekend. But I know it's going to be a very, very challenging one.
Yet another regular season edition of the MVC First Pitch, brought to you by Rawlings and Elvis Dominguez and the Bradley Braves.